Welcome, everyone, to the Layer Super Fun Learning Hour. We're really glad you could join us today. This is actually the final deep dive in our ongoing series all about interpretation. We've spent a good amount of time already, as you know, sort of unpacking what interpretation is, how it works, and the different ways people have theorized it. So we're not starting from scratch here. Definitely not. Today is more about adding a final crucial layer, kind of shifting the perspective as we close out this particular exploration. We're not aiming for one single final answer, but maybe something more insightful. And our guide for this is Christopher Bollas's really profound essay, What is Theory? So the plan is to walk through it together, reflectively, think out loud with you. We want to use Bollas to think about interpretation, not just as, say, a clinical technique, but as something shaped by the theories themselves. Theories that are, well, emotional, subjective, and maybe even chosen unconsciously. It might challenge how we think about knowing things. Okay, so Bollas. He really gets into it right away, doesn't he? He pushes past theory being just, abstract ideas in a book.
Absolutely. He wants us to see it as much more intimate.
He uses terms like mental habit, even self-state. What exactly does he mean by that? It sounds quite conceptual initially.
It is, but it opens up a lot. So, the mental habit idea first. Bollas suggests theory isn't just something you learn and apply from the outside. It's more like an ingrained way your mind works. A characteristic pattern of thinking, how you habitually process information, maybe categorize, maybe look for connections. These are sort of nascent theories already operating.
Okay, like a default mode for making sense of things.
Exactly. But then he goes further, and this is where it gets really fascinating and maybe a bit unsettling. He talks about theory as a self-state.
A self-state.
Yeah. So it's not just a tool you pick from a toolbox. It's more like a psychological state you enter, a mode of being almost. Think of like a method actor embodying a role. Bollas is saying our theories can become that fundamental to how we operate. So when you engage with a theory, you're not just thinking intellectually. You're operating from a specific emotional and psychological stance. It shapes your perception, your interaction with reality.
Which brings up a huge question for interpretation, right?
Definitely. What does it mean if the theory you're using isn't just a framework, but actually part of you? Part of your subjective emotional self?
That really reframes it, makes it feel, much more personal, less like objective science, maybe.
And this connects to his next point, which I found really compelling, the idea that maybe we don't just choose our theories consciously.
Exactly. That's where it gets even deeper.
What if, Bollas asks, in a way, our theories choose us?
Precisely. He argues that selecting a theory is often fundamentally an unconscious process. It's not purely rational. I mean, rationality plays a part, of course, on the surface. But underneath, he suggests it's driven by our personal history, our internal conflicts, our ingrained ways of processing things.
So the theories we're drawn to, they resonate with something already inside us. Yes. They might provide a structure that feels familiar or somehow resolves an internal tension, often without us even realizing it. He talks about the analyst's unconscious identification with their chosen theoretical models.
So the theory isn't just applied.
No, it becomes deeply intertwined with the analyst's personality, their way of organizing their own internal world. It's almost like the theory becomes part of their perceptual filter.
He calls this the theoretical unconscious, right?
That's the term, yeah. A fascinating idea. It suggests our frameworks aren't just mental constructs, but are woven into our psychological fabric, operating beneath awareness.
And this theoretical unconscious, it must have huge implications for what the analyst actually perceives.
Absolutely huge.
Yeah.
It profoundly influences what they hear, what they filter out, what jumps out as significant in the clinical encounter. It guides their attention.
But there's a downside too, isn't there? A risk.
Yes, and this is crucial. It highlights the potential for what you might call theoretical blindness. If an analyst, or anyone really, becomes too rigidly identified with one specific framework,
They might miss things.
they might struggle to see or understand anything that doesn't fit neatly into that theory. Think about, say, a rigidly psychodynamic therapist encountering someone with clear signs of, ADHD. They might interpret everything through the lens of resistance or conflict, potentially missing a core issue because their theory doesn't have the right grammar for it.
So the theory limits their ability to see outside its own boundaries.
Exactly. Their capacity gets limited by the framework they're so identified with.
That's a really sobering point. It really drives home how personal these theories become. So, okay, if theories are this intimate, tied to our self-state, often unconsciously chosen, What does that actually look like in practice, in the moment of interpretation? Whether it's therapy or just trying to understand any complex situation, it sounds, well, not very objective.
You're right, it's far from a sterile process.
Mm.
Boulos really emphasizes that using a theory isn't just intellectual gymnastics, it's an emotional experience.
Emotional. How so?
Well, the interpreter feels things. Comfort, maybe familiarity, if the theory resonates well with their internal world and the situation.
Yeah.
Or maybe discomfort, resistance, if it feels like a poor fit, if it challenges their own psychic organization.
Ah, okay. So the theory itself evokes feelings in the user.
Definitely. And Boulos uses some great metaphors here. He talks about theory acting as a container or a shape.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine pouring the patient's raw, messy experiences, their stories, their feelings into this theoretical container. It gives it form.
Like a mold.
Exactly. Or, he said, it acts like a grammar. It provides the language, the structure to articulate understanding.
Like learning French grammar lets you express thoughts you couldn't before.
Precisely. And this chosen container, or grammar, it dictates not only what can be understood and said, but also what gets left out, what remains unarticulated because the framework just doesn't have words or concepts for it.
It defines the limits of what's even thinkable within that system.
Right. And this leads to another key point Boulos makes, one that I think often gets missed. Theories aren't static. They're not just tools you learn once and apply forever.
They change.
He calls them living structures. They develop and evolve with the interpreter's own lived experience. Think about a therapist over decades. Their initial theoretical grounding doesn't just stay the same. Through countless patient interactions, self-reflection, it adapts, integrates new ideas, maybe reinterprets old ones.
So it's a dynamic relationship. The theory shapes the person, and the person shapes the theory.
Exactly. It's dynamically engaged, not passively applied. It's a symbiotic thing.
That idea of living structures,
Yeah.
wow, that really does shift things fundamentally, doesn't it? It takes us way beyond just the how-to of interpretation.
It really does.
It brings us right to the who. Who is doing the interpreting? It's like the artist and their tools.
Yes. The tools aren't separate. They're extensions of the artist, evolving together.
So the big takeaway here, wrapping up our series.
I think the core message from Boulos is this. Interpretation isn't just technique. It's not just objective rules. It's an act profoundly shaped by the interpreter's own subjective, emotional, often unconscious connection to their theoretical framework.
The theory isn't just a lens.
It reflects the interpreter's internal landscape, their way of making meaning, their patterns of thinking and feeling.
So to really get interpretation, you have to get the interpreter's relationship with their theories.
That's it exactly.
Yeah.
And this brings us back to that reflective idea we've touched on. Maybe what we thought we knew about interpretation, well, maybe it was also deeply about who we were when we were doing the interpreting.
The meaning maker is inseparable from the meaning made.
Beautifully put.
What a way to conclude this series. Boulos really gives us a monumental shift, I think. Moving from theory as this external thing we just used.
To seeing it as internal, living, emotional part of us.
And that was our aim with this final deep dive, to give you that crucial layer, to help you be really informed about this personal dimension. And, as you go about your day, maybe think about how this applies outside of therapy. Think about any field where you use frameworks or models to make sense of things. Science, history, architecture, even just interpreting people in your daily life. Right. How do your own experiences, your mental habits, your unconscious leanings, how do they shape the lens you use?
Are you naturally someone who groups things together or someone who focuses on differences? What does that tell you?
Yeah. And maybe one last provocative thought to leave you with. If our theories are so tangled up with who we are, with our self-states, our histories, what does that imply about knowledge itself? About our ability to truly know anything or anyone?
Without first trying to know ourselves and the theoretical glasses we're inherently wearing.
It suggests objectivity might always be, well, filtered through a very subjective instrument, something to definitely mull over. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive and really throughout this whole series on interpretation.
It's been a fascinating exploration.
We hope you found it insightful. Until next time, keep exploring.